The phone felt cold against my ear, a stark contrast to the heat rushing to my face. My sister's voice, always so polished, so sure, came through the line without a single crack. "It's only for family, Maya." Just like that. 5 words. I stood in the middle of my own kitchen, the morning light feeling suddenly harsh and invasive, and realized I had just been formally, deliberately uninvited from my parents' 40th wedding anniversary, the event I'd been quietly funding for months. The one I'd helped plan over countless text threads I was now realizing had gone mysteriously silent. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. A numbness, deep and glacial, began to spread from my chest outwards, icing over the hurt before it could fully bloom. Because her sentence did 2 things. It erased me, and in that erasure, it set me free. If I wasn't family, then I had no more obligations. And the choice I made next didn't just ruin their party, it dismantled the entire fragile fiction our family was built on. But before I tell you how it all unfolded, I want to know where you are right now. Are you watching this from your bedroom, late at night when the house is quiet? Or maybe on your lunch break, seeking a moment of understanding? Wherever you are, whatever time it is for you, tap that subscribe button. Stay with me. Because if you've ever felt like the background character in your own life, this story is for you. My name is Maya. I'm 34 and I build things. Not with my hands, but with lines of code. I'm a software architect, a career I chose precisely because it values logic, clarity, and solutions that work without fanfare. In the silent, glowing language of computers, my contributions are measured, visible, essential. In my family, they were expected, invisible, and never quite enough. From the outside, we were the perfect unit. The Evans family. A handsome, respectable trio. My older sister, Cassandra, graceful, ambitious, a corporate lawyer with a smile that could disarm a jury. My younger brother, Daniel, the pragmatic academic. A professor of economics who could explain the world in neat, rational theories. And then me. The quiet one. The steady one. The one in the middle who learned early that making noise only disrupted the beautiful picture we presented to the world. Our family home was a gallery of that perfection. Framed portraits from professional sittings where we all wore coordinating neutrals. Candid shots from holidays that looked staged, because in many ways, they were. Cassandra, front and center, always. Daniel, looking thoughtfully into the middle distance. Me. Usually at the edge, my smile a little softer, my body angled slightly away. A metaphor I didn't understand until much later. My role was cemented early, the fixer. Not the star, not the intellectual, but the one who patched the cracks so the facade remained intact. And the primary tool for that patching was money. It was never a demand. It was a soft, persistent sigh woven into our interactions. A text from my mother. "The roof is leaking again, and you know how your father worries." An offhand comment from my dad. "The property taxes this year are a beast." A call from Cassandra, breezy and bright. "Mom's been talking about renewing her vows for their anniversary. Isn't that sweet? It's a shame things are so tight for them right now." The subtext was a language I became fluent in. So, I transferred funds. I paid invoices directly. I covered the temporary shortfalls that became a permanent state of being. Every transaction was a silent plea. See me. Value me. Let me belong. The gratitude was sparse, a currency they doled out in careful, insufficient amounts. "You're a saint, Maya. I don't know what we'd do without you." Then, immediately, the subject would change to Cassandra's latest promotion or Daniel's published paper. My financial support was treated like oxygen. Absolutely necessary, utterly expected, and completely unremarkable. I told myself this was love. This was how I contributed. I was the foundation, and foundations aren't meant to be seen, they're meant to be stood upon. The anniversary planning began as a distant hum. I'd hear snippets. Mom wanted a specific band. Dad was insisting on a particular caterer. Cassandra was handling the invitations. I assumed, naturally, that my involvement was a given. I was, after all, bankrolling a significant portion of it. When the vendor emails started coming to me for approval on expenses, I approved them without comment. When the deposit for the venue was due, I paid it. I pictured myself there in a new dress, maybe finally receiving a toast, a genuine acknowledgement of my place in the family. The first chill came subtly. A group chat was created for family party planning. I wasn't in it. I found out when Daniel mentioned it in passing during a weekly call. "Oh, Cass thought it'd be easier to coordinate on a separate thread," he said, his tone dismissive. "You know how she likes things organized." I felt a tiny pinprick of unease, but smoothed it over. "Don't be needy, Maya." Then, the requests changed. They became more frequent, more entitled. Cassandra texted, "We need to upgrade the floral arrangements. Mom's heart is set on peonies, and the ones in the package look cheap. It's only an extra $1,000. Daniel called, "I've been thinking, we should get Dad that vintage watch he's always admired as a gift from all of us. My share is a bit tied up with the conference in Geneva. Can you front it? I'll pay you back." The "I'll pay you back" was a ghost we all pretended to believe in. The day of the uninvitation started like any other. I was debugging a complex piece of code, the world narrowed to the logic on my screen. My phone rang. Cassandra. Her voice was all business. "Maya, hi. Quick question. For the seating chart, we're finalizing. I just need to confirm you're still okay with covering the bar tab as your contribution? It simplifies the accounting." Contribution. The word hung in the air, sterile and transactional. "Of course," I said, my voice automatic. Then a sliver of hope, a need for confirmation. "So, what time should I be there for the family photos?" The photographer wanted to know. The pause that followed was not a glitch. It was a vacuum, sucking all the sound and warmth out of the connection. I could hear her breathing, could almost see her composing her face into an expression of polite regret. "Oh, Maya, about that." Another pause. This is so awkward. But with the venue's strict capacity limits and, well, Dad really wanted to keep this intimate. Just immediate family. You understand, right? It's only for family. Time fractured. The words immediate family bounced around my skull. I was their daughter. Wasn't I immediate? Wasn't I family? I don't understand, I managed to say, the words thick. "I've been helping to pay for it. And we're so grateful for that," she said, her tone now one of gentle chastisement, as if I were a child pointing out a forgotten gift. "This isn't about that. This is about the day itself. It's about Mom and Dad having the simple, intimate celebration they envisioned. Having everyone there would change the dynamic. It's only for family." She said it again. The final nail. It's only for family. The message was clear. My money was family. My presence was not. I don't remember ending the call. I found myself sitting on my pristine, gray sofa, staring at a blank television screen that reflected back a ghostly version of myself. The numbness was complete now, a protective cocoon. I replayed years of support, of silence, of making myself small. I thought of the guest list I'd seen, their cousins, their neighbors, my parents' colleagues, Cassandra's friends from the law firm. All family enough for the party, but not me. The truth didn't hurt. It crystallized. I hadn't been supporting a family. I had been funding a production in which I was no longer cast. The anger, when it came, wasn't hot. It was cold, clear, and sharp as a diamond-tipped blade. It wasn't directed at them, not yet. It was directed at the version of myself who had accepted this for so long. That night, the silence in my apartment was deafening. It wasn't peaceful, it was accusatory. It echoed with all the things I had never said. I didn't cry. I got up, walked to my home office, and opened my laptop. But not to work. I opened my banking app. I looked at the transfers, the scheduled payments for the anniversary. I canceled every single one. I contacted the venue, the caterer, the band, the florist, using the approval authority they'd given me via email. I informed them that due to a change in circumstances, all future correspondence and financial obligations were to be directed to Cassandra Evans or Daniel Evans. I was polite, firm, and final. I was dismantling my role as the family bank, line by line. Then I opened a travel website. I didn't dream of Paris or Rome. I wanted somewhere that demanded nothing, a place with no memories. I booked a one-way ticket to Reykjavik, Iceland. Land of fire, ice, and vast, empty spaces. I booked a secluded cabin for a month north of the city, near the coast. I texted my best friend, Sophia. Going away. Need to disconnect. We'll explain later. Her response was instant. Send me your details. I've got your back. No questions. Just support. The contrast to my family's conditional love was so stark it almost made me cry, but I was still too frozen for tears. I packed methodically, warm, functional clothing, my laptop, my professional camera I used for architectural photography, my journal. As I zipped the suitcase, I felt the first tremor of something unfamiliar: agency. The fallout began before I even reached the airport. My phone erupted. First, a confused text from the florist to the group thread, the one I wasn't on, but it was forwarded to me by a bewildered Daniel. Cassandra, we've received a cancellation for the peony upgrade and a directive to change the billing. Please advise. Then, my mother, Maya, what is happening? The venue just called me. Then Cassandra, a direct missile, call me now. What have you done? I silenced my phone. At the airport, amidst the chaos of travelers, I felt a profound calm. I was a ghost among them, untethered. As the plane lifted off, watching the city grid shrink into insignificance, I didn't feel like I was running away. I felt like I was flying towards a version of myself I had abandoned at the side of the road years ago. Iceland was a shock to the system in the best way. The air was knife clean. The landscape was brutal and magnificent, all sharp cliffs, roaring waterfalls, and endless black sand beaches. My cabin was small, heated, and looked out over a windswept plain towards a slate-gray sea. There was no vibe to absorb, no pressure to be anything. There was just existence. For the first week, I did nothing. I slept for 12 hours at a stretch. I read novels. I walked for miles, the wind whipping my hair, the only sounds the crunch of gravel under my boots and the distant scream of gulls. I took photos, not for anyone, but for myself. Details: the intricate pattern of frost on my window, the violent curl of a wave, the serene face of an Icelandic horse. The silence here wasn't empty, it was full of its own ancient, indifferent music. Meanwhile, my absence began to create a vacuum at home. The party, now stripped of my financial backbone, was in chaos. Cassandra, used to commanding outcomes, was flailing. Daniel, the rationalist, was trying to logic his way through an emotional catastrophe. My parents were bewildered, fielding calls from vendors asking for payment. The beautiful, seamless event was fraying at the seams, and they had no idea how to stitch it back together because the thread me was gone. I didn't post anything for 2 weeks. I simply vanished. This, I later learned, was more unnerving for them than any dramatic outburst. My social media was dormant. My phone, when they called, went straight to voicemail. I was an utter, complete blank. The mystery of my whereabouts became a toxic cloud over their preparations. The night before the anniversary party, I felt a strange pull. Not homesickness, but a need to mark the moment. I built a small fire in the pit outside my cabin, under a sky swirling with the faint, ethereal green of the aurora borealis. I made a cup of strong tea. And I wrote. I wrote down everything: the years of feeling like an afterthought, the financial ledger of my love, the cold precision of Cassandra's dismissal. I didn't write it as a post. I wrote it as a letter to myself, a final autopsy of the relationship I had clung to. When I was done, I felt purged. On a whim, I took my camera and captured a single image, my boot propped near the fire, the dancing flames, the vast, dark expanse beyond, and a shimmer of aurora in the corner of the frame. It was lonely, but it was peaceful. It was mine. I posted it with one sentence: finding warmth where you least expect it. Then I went to bed and slept deeply. The digital tsunami hit my dormant online presence almost immediately. Likes, comments, questions from friends. Iceland? Wow. When did you go? This looks incredible. Are you okay? The algorithm did its work, showing my serene, mysterious post to everyone, including every single person invited to the intimate, immediate family anniversary party. Back home, it was the afternoon of the event. The party was already a strained affair. My parents were visibly tense, having had to scramble to cover costs. Cassandra was a brittle ball of manic energy, snapping at the event staff. Daniel was giving tight-lipped, academic explanations to anyone who asked about the scaled-back arrangements. Then, someone saw my post. A cousin showed my mother. A neighbor showed my father. A murmur rippled through the room, sharp and insistent. The contrast was devastating. While they were in a strained, artificially lit hotel ballroom trying to project joy, I was under the northern lights, alone but visibly at peace. The question started as a whisper, then grew into a deafening, unspoken roar. Why is Maya in Iceland? Why isn't she here? My mother broke first. My phone, which I turned on briefly the next morning to check messages from Sophia, exploded. Dozens of missed calls, a string of increasingly desperate texts. Mom, Maya, please call me. Mom, people are asking where you are. This is very embarrassing. Mom, that picture, why would you post that now? Are you trying to ruin this for us? Cassandra, you selfish, spiteful brat. Do you have any idea what you've done? Call me and fix this. Daniel, this was an immature and disproportionate response, Maya. The rational thing would have been to discuss this privately. You've caused maximum public damage. I felt nothing but a detached curiosity. I made another cup of tea, wrapped myself in a blanket, and watched the sea churn. Then I called my mother back. She answered on the first ring. Maya. Her voice was a frayed wire, tight with suppressed hysteria. Thank God. You need to take that picture down. Right now. People are talking. They're leaving. The party was a disaster. What picture, Mom? I asked, my voice calm. You know what picture? The one in Iceland. Why are you in Iceland? Why aren't you here? You mean at the anniversary party? I asked, innocent as the driven snow. The one that was only for family? A sharp intake of breath. Don't you dare throw that back at us. Cassandra explained. It was about space. She explained very well, I interrupted, still calm. I understood perfectly. So I made other plans. I didn't mention the party. I didn't mention any of you. I just posted a picture of my vacation. If people are drawing conclusions, they're drawing them from the facts you provided. We are your family, she cried, the mask of respectability finally cracking. Are you? The question hung in the digital space between Iceland and home, simple and devastating. It didn't feel like it. It felt like I was a line of credit. And when the credit was no longer needed, the account was closed. She wept then, messy, angry tears. She said I was hurting my father, that I was destroying everything they'd built. She begged me to come home, to fix this. I've spent my life fixing things for you, Mom, I said, the numbness finally giving way to a gentle, unshakable sadness. I'm done. I hope the party was everything you wanted. I hung up. Cassandra's call was next. It was pure, undiluted fury. You vindictive little witch. You planned this. You wanted to humiliate us. I planned a vacation, Cass, I said, weary. You planned a party and told me I wasn't family enough to attend. Which of those actions was deliberate? You were always jealous. You couldn't stand that I was closer to them, that I was the one who really mattered. Her words, meant to wound, only clarified the decades of sickness. I wasn't jealous, Cassandra. I was lonely. And I'm not lonely anymore. Take it down. No. She screamed a raw, shocking sound and hung up. Daniel tried the voice of reason. Maya, you've made your point. The emotional retaliation has been noted. Now it's time for damage control. We need to present a united front, issue a statement about a family misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Daniel, I said. I was excluded. I accepted the exclusion. The rest is just optics. And I'm no longer interested in managing the family's optics. You're being irrational. This will have social and professional repercussions for all of us. Then it's a good thing I work in a field that values output over social connections, I replied. And it's a good thing my professional reputation isn't tied to looking like a perfect family in a suburban magazine. He sputtered, his logic failing him. He resorted to posting a vague, pompous quote about loyalty being a two-way street on his professional profile. It backfired spectacularly. Mutual friends, coworkers who knew me, commented with things like, "Wait, Wasn't Maya the one who always helped your parents? What happened? The narrative was escaping their control. The aftermath was quiet, long, and profound. I stayed in Iceland for another month. The initial firestorm of calls and messages dwindled to a trickle, then to silence. The quiet that followed was different from the silence of exclusion. This was a quiet I owned. I started working again remotely, my focus sharper than ever. I began a personal photography project, capturing the stark beauty of my surroundings. I felt myself expanding into the space I had created. When I finally returned home, it was to a different life. My apartment felt like a shell, a museum of my old self. I slowly began to change it, injecting color, comfort, things that brought me joy, not things that represented a version of me that was acceptable to others. My family, I learned through the sparse grapevine, had been fundamentally altered. The party had been a social catastrophe. The story had leaked in its true, unvarnished form, the uninvited daughter who paid the bills. Their perfect image was shattered. Old friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the hypocrisy. My parents retired into a kind of bewildered isolation. Cassandra, whose social capital was heavily invested in her perfect family persona, found herself sidelined at work functions. Daniel's attempts to rationalize it all fell flat. They reached out, of course. Tentative, wounded emails. "We miss you. Can we talk? Let's put this behind us." The subtext was always there. Let's go back to how things were. But I couldn't. The woman who would silently pay for her own erasure no longer existed. I met them once at a neutral coffee shop. The air was thick with unsaid things. They looked older, smaller. My mother's eyes were permanently watery with regret. My father couldn't meet my gaze. Cassandra was defiant, but it was a brittle defiance, like glass under pressure. "We're sorry you felt excluded," my mother began, the non-apology apology I knew was coming. "I didn't feel excluded," I corrected gently. "I was excluded. By your definition, by your words." "We want our family back," my father said, his voice rough. "I'm still here," I said. "But the family you want back, the one where I pay and stay quiet in the corner, that family is gone. I can be your daughter, but I won't be your financier or your footnote. We can build something new, with honesty and actual boundaries. Or we can have this polite distance. The choice is yours." They chose the distance. It was easier for them. The script of victimhood was more comfortable than the hard work of accountability. And I found, to my surprise, that I was okay with that. The grief was real, but it was for the fantasy I'd held, not for the people they actually were. I built a new family, one of chosen sisters like Sophia, of colleagues who respected my mind, of a gentle, quiet love with a man who saw me first, not my utility. The revenge was never in the Iceland post. It wasn't in the canceled checks. The revenge was in my peace. It was in the mornings I woke up and my first thought wasn't, what do they need from me? It was in the work I created that was wholly, authentically mine. It was in the boundaries that stood, not as walls, but as clear markers of where I ended and they began. I didn't destroy my family. They had been slowly destroying themselves with lies and exploitation for years. I simply stopped providing the materials for the demolition. I walked off the construction site and built my own house on my own foundation. And it is solid. It is warm. It is mine. So, if you're listening to this, feeling that cold knot of recognition in your stomach, knowing what it is to be used as a resource and discarded as a person, hear this. Your silence is not loyalty. Your money is not love. Your place at the edge of the frame is not where you belong. You have the right to step into the center of your own life. You have the right to say no to those who only say yes to what you can give them. Choosing yourself isn't an act of war. It's an act of creation. And you, my friend, are worth building.